So do you think we could free up more tax in a different way to pay police officers and public sector workers, yes? And
Yeah.
doctors and give them more money? Police officers need more money, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah? Armed forces need more money. Well, how do you get more money? Well, what happens if you close the job centres? Just think about this for a second. How much are all of those people under the DWP paid out of the tax pot?
I wonder.
Yeah, so do I. It's a very big statistic, actually. So what happens then if you then bring down all of the Atos places? Because who gives a toss? Yeah? What happens if we bring these assessment places down? We take all of those down, we remove the buildings, then there's more for small businesses to accumulate into. No longer need to heat them, no longer need to have all the fancy computers and the systems and the security and all of the security that goes into it behind the scenes. No need to pay security guards anymore. And then there's a deficit, right? Because these businesses are crying out for workforce, yes?
Yeah.
So these individuals won't go into the benefit system. They will then go off over into these workforce, so that cures that problem. The DWP as a whole, that is costing way so much money, right? So that frees up more money than you can imagine, actually. Because in comparison, right, people on benefits are paid a lot less than the people that are employed in job centres, work coaches and all different stuff like that.
Yeah.
They are paid far more than anybody on benefits. And then for people to say no to a benefit, and then you'd say, well, then it means that people will be able to get benefits. Well, yeah, but through your doctor, the one who knows, who's medically trained. Because let's be realistic, registered nurse or a doctor and a hospital that knows what you are going through. They see you a lot more than just one assessment now and then. This frees up the money to go over to the police, goes over to the armed services, goes over to paramedics, nurses, and it also pumps more into the NHS. Would it be on the teetering of collapsation if this was a new change that was implemented? The DWP, at the top of that, the Treasury lady, whoever she is talking in the same way that Amber Rudd did, no longer need a position for you anymore. So I wonder how much we'd save the taxpayer in ridding you and all of the rest of the MPs that fall into this area. We
All
leave
the
it over to the
advisors,
doctors.
yeah.
So there we just saved some tax money. And what we've not just saved it, we've now utilised it, and we've created a workforce. Lo and behold, you are absolutely wanting to work because you want to get other people into work. So therefore, you will go into this work. Now, we take all of the rest of the MPs and we now exchange their wages, because it comes from the tax pot, into vouchers. We're just going to pay you all in vouchers now, because that is from the tax pot, right? And we need to see where this money is going and what you're spending it on. And then we need to make sure that you're known as a, someone who's up high somewhere. Then you'll be able to buy a house on this. Well, no, because no one else can buy a house on this. Okay, so shall we be able to do this? So tax is looked at in this way. Then if we free all of this money, what else can we put this into? Well, it better our NHS. That makes it free for all people, regardless of how you work, where you work, when you work, how much money you've got in a bank. Everybody entitled to the same NHS, as long as you're paying it into a tax pot. And therefore, you could say that people on benefits don't pay a tax, but actually, technically, it's not true. What about if there was money, but they still paid a tax into these tax pots? Wouldn't it still pay for these things, functions, that they use them very selves? Then, therefore, that would be a much more of a better approach. And I'm pretty sure that most people on benefits would like to do that, and would be able to do that. What about prisons? Prisons. More prisons, more prisons. Do you know how much these cost compared to anybody on a benefit? And never mind the benefit. The benefit would have to be reimbursed. So if the job centre want to collapse the DWP, I'm all for it, but you have to reimburse the population. Not just your taxes you've put into this pot, but you also have to refund the families that have been paying into this for the promises of a better tomorrow that were never delivered. So therefore, I ask you the question, that if real politics wants to get involved and they really want to lead by example, all of you politicians that make those lovely votes and sit into the Houses of Parliament, King, you'll be paid in vouchers. Everybody will be paid in vouchers. All of you will be paid in vouchers. You're the top end of the taxpayers takers, actually. And then when you're going to look after people's pensions and different stuff like that, and you take this money and spend it on something else, because that's where the borrowing comes from, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
The borrowing comes from these pots.
From pots for
So therefore,
future.
that is fraud.
Yeah.
That is fraud. So when are we going to have some investigations done for the liars and the cheaters? Wow, isn't it great to all feel so united on something? So There you are. So what about politicians are now paid by vouchers?
Mm-hmm.
The same amount that you expect people to live on, because that's the legal amount you need to live on. So therefore the wages must come down for a legal amount for you to take out of a tax pot, because that should be all the way across the board. Hey, DWP secretary. Well, you just talked yourself out of a job, haven't you? Wow, that was fast. How long did that take you? You are no different from Amber Rudd, actually, to be honest. I find this absolutely disgusting. But yeah, no, well, let's go down this little Cherry Road lane, shall we? And then we've got to look at prison reform. Prisons need reforming. Absolutely, they need reforming. And I believe in a type of prison that is very basic. You know, vouchers, wink. No jump in the NHS because it's got HM's name before the prison, wink. So, you know, I believe then that you will have a prison that is practically basic. Actually, it'll be worse than basic. Oh, human rights! No, you lost your rights, that's why you're in a prison. So you will then start off as a basic amount of stuff that you will get. No consoles, no TVs, no tobaccos, no privileges, nothing at all. Will be paid via taxpayers' money into the prison pot. Here, let's try and find some more ways to free some money, shall we? This is how you do politics. Going to tick all these boxes for you. So the prison system then, yes? It becomes the very most diabolical place that no one in their right mind or absent mind would ever want to be in this situation. They don't want to go in that. However, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it's about behavior, penitence. Let's say penitentiary, and we take the American word, which is absolutely correctional. And if we understand that we've got to correct a behavior or thinking process. Yes? So you give a choice of this is a workhouse versus that shithole. That worst of the worst. Oh, you all really want to get out of there, but how do you get out of there? Your behavior, bad behavior got you into that shit. Now, can your good behavior, within reason, get you into a prison that's workhouse? There will be no gangs. You will be divided. You will have socialized events where you can talk with one another much like you do with children. And if it's unacceptable in a prison that you can't make them separate, then why do you keep kids in such an alignment in schools and only give them playtime at break time? You only give them socializing at break time. Now, do we see the point? My point is coming out now. You want to push? Let's push, but be ready for the pull. And then I'm ready for your push again. Charge me up, because every time you do, this rises me, and hopefully rises everybody else along the way. So, if it is not acceptable to do this inside a prison, then it would not be acceptable to be standard as good kids in a school, then would it? So we will have correctional. You can stay in that squalor, then you will be like, aha. So one person then decides to go into the workhouse. You know, all of those jobs, because we've got so many people on benefits. Have you ever looked at the numbers of prisoners? Have you seen it? It is absolutely staggering. Do you know how much of your taxes are being paid onto that? But let's keep going at people who are weaker in society, who brought no illness on themselves. Most of it has been created by the outside prefects of the societal impacts that then affect the psychological ones inside. But still, let's ban marijuana and hemp because it causes mental health. Well, gee me. Selective. That is very selective. Oh. So, with this prison, they then go into this workhouse and then they start to work. Now, they're not going to be paid directly, indirectly. They will be a little bit chipped away because their sentence might be 15 years, 5 years, 10 years. Okay? It's going to pay into the pot that they are taking from, that we freely give. Once it's past that, that frees up money for people who are sick, who did not bring those choices onto themselves, like exhibit number A being the prisoners and exhibit number B, and I know I'm using number instead of letter. It's just my point of just sort of understanding this society is very much like that. That you can believe whatever is said. Because politics shout the loudest and point the finger, but don't point the finger at the real hard work. Haven't you got real politics to be doing rather than picking on the most lowest people in society? Absolutely disgusting. I find this disgusting. And it just goes to show how much the big bullies you lot really are. biggest bullies. But you're a kind of punch above your weight when you go for prisoners, isn't it? Because they all come for you, isn't it? So you'll leave someone like me unprotected, with no protections whatsoever against prisoners or cons, men, any way, shape or form. But it's alright, I'll stand for that. Because rather than this continue on like this, and you just sit there pointing the finger at people who are weaker in society in your mindset, is absolutely disgusting. So yes, okay, King, that's a very big crown. Should you be doing some work somewhere along the line? No? Or we just take the crown and the different stuff like that and do nothing? Do nothing, apart from employ more bullies. It's very quiet, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very quiet.
Yeah.
And is this because I'm jealous of a crown? I don't think so. At least give me something to be jealous of. This ain't it. And money? Not it. I'm sorry, it really ain't. And crown and gold and silver? It's not really it. Symbolism, I guess, because you wear rings and you do this. There's a different meaning for every person I know that died or committed suicide. I will wear the weight, the chain, the Scrooge, if you like. It's just a weird way I deal with things. But anyway, so these prisons will then move. Work houses inside them, they will be divided. Any trouble and you go straight back into that. And then you move up with trust, right? You begin to start to show a better behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Now, will this allow you to get certain things? Tobacco, let's say? Okay then. Well, you are working for it after all.
Yeah.
Do you get a little bit more of a nicer room? Okay then, you are paying for it.
Better bed.
Better bed, better quality food. Based on your good behavior, we show reward. And as you begin to go through your sentence and work, you then become rehabilitated. Slowly but surely. Then after a year of doing this, basic stuff, because you've got to gain trust, depends what you're in there for, you then move to prison number 2, which is a bit more hands-on with machinery. A little bit more relaxed than the last one, and definitely a lot shite better than this one. Until eventually you're reaching the end of your sentence. Do you as prisoners get to shave off some of your time? If you begin to do, and there, that would have to be asked a question on what the severity of your crime was. And with this excess money that you make, some of it will go into a pot to help you when you leave and join society again.
Mm-hmm.
You will be on the road to working.
Mm-hmm.
You might feel good about it. And then when you do leave, the eureka happens because that money that was subject to paying for your hotel has now hit you. More so. And now you know how to budget. You've got education. You learn how to cook. You've got trust. You've learnt trade by getting your hands on. And you've gained trust. And therefore, anybody that walks through that should then have a right to have their past forgotten. Not be used for employers to say, no, you can't have a job. No, that should have a right to be forgotten because they rehabilitated. They fell down, got down, no matter what it was. Well, within reason, I think there are certain things that I just probably would just not allow this sort of thing to happen with. And then severity of crime. And therefore, trust moves you from one prison to another, to another, to another, to one that's a bit more like, I believe it was called Holsey Bay, where you don't have to lock them in.
Yeah.
Perhaps at night. But still, they know that when the alarm goes, time to go to work. And then they are paying, in essence, for the sick people in the country. They are paying into the tax pot. And if they are paying into a tax pot, can they then start to pay into the pension pot?
Yeah.
And tell me, what part of human rights is this? So if Nelson Mandela was still about, and I came and sat down with him and spoke about this sort of thing, what do you think his opinion would be?
I think he would like that.
Do you think he'd incorporate that? Do you think he would have incorporated that? Do you think he would have looked at that?
Yeah, he would have looked at that.
To stick on one belief and hold it as gospel for the remainder of history until day dot, from one person that said something, because the furniture must be in place, because we don't like change. I relish it. Love it, in fact. Change. And that is a baseline of a theory that he started off. And it should be built, maintained, and it should grow, not stagnate and stay stuck. You know, certain rules and legislation and laws, don't they really begin to excuse my language, but don't they really begin to fuck us up?
Yeah. They do. That's what happens. Yeah.
I mean, what type of a prison system do you want? The one that is current, that we've got today? And then the bright idea is to add more prisoners to this.
Too expensive. And the ones who don't have to be there, who could do community service or something.
But whilst the public are dividing each other against poor versus working class versus middle class,
no one looks at this.
no one will ever look, and that's the distraction. They've thrown a scrap of food at you, and you barely got enough, and you're fighting for it, calling it a 6. That's a 9. That's a 6. Yo, people, folks, hello. Did you not know that that's a 3? Also, come look at my perspective. I see a 6 and a 9. Oh yeah. You need to douse the flames on this. Dividing is conquering. They want you to be this way. That is not acceptable. That's not politics. That is absolutely... Is that all we got for history over and over again? Let's just keep repeating the same stuff over again. Nothing, and then we wonder why nothing ever changes. Nothing ever gets fixed. Well, we keep coming at it from the same problem, same solution, if you call it that, same distraction.
Yeah.
No, we need change.
Big change.
Yeah,
Complex.
big change. Absolute
Complex
big
change.
change. And then we leave the doctors that seem to know more and see people more. With them to deal with DWP stuff. I think they know it a little bit more. Actually, quite a lot, intimately. Is it very easy for politicians who are not medically trained to come out and call people out who are not sick? It's very weird, actually. But you are safeguarded with your many millions, aren't you? Your hundreds of thousands of taxpayers' money that have supplied you for many, many times to keep on acting like this? This is your change? This is what you are paid for? Secretary of DWP. This is it. This is all you could come out with, is divide the people.
Not giving children, but giving some people only. And
so what, the next time
about...
the royal children grow up and have even more children, will that change the child tax credit? And then I wonder, with this child tax credit, how many people are actually working and still can't afford? So getting a job is like waving this magic wand that just doesn't exist.
No.
It's just not there.
In the past, if people worked hard, they could get something. That's long gone, isn't it?
Well, drop council tax and put up all of the taxes on the working. Then you don't need to wait to build houses. Make homelessness outlawed, and then everyone has to cram into the same building. And then you begin to take the children away because of this reason, that reason, this reason, and then who is going to pay for that?
Yeah.
Taxpayer or working people? Or is it going to be the people on benefits? Or is it going to be the people that lose the children? Is it going to be the establishment itself? Very strange system, really. Is that this then begins, well, so now you're homeless, now we've got to take your kid, we're going to do this, we're going to do that.
Yeah, so more money has to be spent because you make someone homeless. They can take care of their children, but you take them away. And you have to pay someone
else to
and
look after
then
those.
give them money for the children. So it's not just the money for the children, but also pay them to do that.
You see, at the moment, the biggest taxer is the houses. But they can't build enough houses to supply that extra tax. So, in order not to build more houses or rush to do it, what do you do instead? Well, you start to begin to get more people in work, and then you start to rise their taxes on their working. But for what? Another pension pot for them to dip their hands into?
Yeah, it never stays there. They always take it out and use it for something else.
That's fraud.
Yeah.
That is not what it was intended for.
Yeah.
That's fraud.
People pay taxes for something, and they believe that at the end of the road there's something.
So who is regulating that? DWP? Where are you all?
I don't think anyone is regulating that.
So far, the only thing that is practically regulated, and it's not practical, it's unpractical, are sick people. Not abusive cops. Not abusive politicians. Not tax takers from pension pots. No, no. So no, again, if I had a government, this would all be eliminated. Prisons would definitely, I'm not going to use the word reform. No, you'd see it, you'd feel it. Oh, well, that's unfair. Well, then, so is your crime. Talk to me about fairness. And then next time they go to think about doing a crime, they'll think about that. Oh, and if they fuck it up in any 1, 2, or 3, or 4 prison, you go back to prison 0. And you have to start again. If you want to stay there throughout your whole sentence, I do not think so. There's going to be so much of a situation there that you just will not possibly be able to live with it. You know, the way they make psychological things inside the police stations to try and make the prisoners, yes, well, I'd do the same thing in that prison. Well, if it's legal there, it must be legal here. Then it must be legal for you, and it must be legal for me. And it must be legal for everyone to do that sort of thing. To anyone at any time. Because prisoners have rights, right? More rights than some of you living, breathing out in society have never done anything wrong.
Yeah, they have every right, don't they?
Do they skip dentist queues? Do they get operations as quickly as possible?
Yeah. Because they could go and complain.
Because it's got HM before it.
Yeah.
Boy, 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 boy. Charlie, 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 Charlie. What are we going to do? And it was Ollie Cromwell, was it? Is that going to be made into a reality? Have we accepted that that's what it's going to be? Interesting. Yeah, so I think that's how I would sort that out. Yeah, I would sort that. You would know about it. And all politicians should be offered vouchers, yes?
Yeah.
Then there will be no more flash cars, and then... Whew, oh dear. How can you make it legal for only a part of the tax pot? No, that should be fully across the board. And then why do we have AI technology? We do, don't we?
Yeah.
Then close the job centres then.
It can follow rules. AI can follow rules very well, can't it?
Yeah, but the way the law is written and not try and skim people out of money all the time.
Yeah.
And then expect the people not to do the same thing that you're doing to them. And no wonder why there are so many fraudsters and criminals and... Oh, God, I've got to tap this brain a bit more to try and figure that out a little bit more. Why are people cheating tax, not paying in tax pots? Why do you think that is? Why do you think there's so much cash in hand work going on? This is growing as well. But again, that's something that you can never know the numbers for, isn't it?
Because people see waste of
How
money.
many people are not paying into the tax pot?
Yeah.
Well, it's a statistic that you don't know, isn't it? How? Because I'm sure people are like, yeah, Yeah, I'm doing that. And then what about the statistics of how many of you had your hands in the pension pot? How many of you have promised a tax for something but did not deliver on it? How many times has that occurred?
Many. You're paying for roads that are never fixed properly and stuff like that. Where does it go?
Where does it go? Indeed.
Yeah.
So you pay something and you have absolutely no idea where it goes, but when the government pays you something, they need to know the ins and outs of a duck's ass.
Yeah.
Isn't that unusual?
Yeah.
You are the ones paying this pot. And you have no right to know? Well, that should be a human right, shouldn't it?
No, don't tell you any details. We'll tell you that it's this pot, but
Because
whether it's full or empty, you don't know.
Because we emphasize on the fact that you don't have a right to know, but we must know everything. See, we would never do. It's to trick you. It's to trick you into believing. That's what it is. That is a trick. That's a trick. Psychological trick, that is. Get in there first. Shuts it down. Before someone says, I told you so, you say, yes, I know, I am that, yes. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Did you know that? It's well rehearsed.
Yeah. Okay.
That's got to go. And that's what I think the people need in this country, don't you?
Yeah.
And wherever else, but this country mainly. Shall we do it differently? But it would have to be regulated so that it wasn't corrupted in order to get people to go into the workhouses. Just go out and nick a load of people just for doing absolutely sweet FA. And sure, I understand that when police officers need to get rough, there's a time and place for it. And then you watch commenters saying, yes, get in there, son. Oh, do this, this, and this. It's amazing how the shoe will be on the other foot if it was done to you.
Yeah.
It appears a little bit racist, this.
Yeah.
Just a smidge. I'm going to leave this one here. Now I've got things to do, but still, it's a little something to think about. Not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong. Just saying it's just what I would do looking at the situation and where I would find the way to free up money. And it shouldn't be I, it should be we.
Yeah.
We'd have to look at that. There again, I could be delusional. That could just look like a good idea, but what do you think? What do you think? Collectively.
Definitely there are things that can be changed.
I think we free up more than the percentage of people on benefits in just by doing these small little steps.
Yeah.
I think we'll free up an awful lot of taxpayers' money. And then think of those possibilities. Do we have enough to go to space as a nation now? Do we have enough to make the moon into a greenhouse? Do we have enough robotics to get them there to build this stuff? Ask yourselves as a nation, what should we be focusing on? This rocket? Or should we be focusing on our food? Our water?
Yeah.
And therefore, I agree. Money is the root of all freedom.
Yeah. It is.
There we are. That's going to do me now.